even judges were aware of that, and it's pretty evident that he's pretty well informed about quite a few things. But I just thought that was a pretty interesting segue for me to make the statement. A lot of the other things were just, again, me passionately wanting to defend issues that may not have been properly before this court, but nonetheless, he gave me an opportunity to explain things and actually lay a foundation as to why I believe that the stop was not just the stop was improper based upon the reason they're going to give for the stop, but that any reflection of what happened with the license is improper because of other processes. I just didn't have the ability to articulate it and put it together in a manner that would have made as much sense then as I could probably do it, I'm sure I can do it today.
Okay, here we go. I learned something today. But if your argument is that the application of the statute
is improper,
well, again, the contravention of the 14th Amendment to me deals with fundamental constitutional rights, and I'm not sure what that fundamental constitutional right would be implicated by you receiving this citation.
To state that I need a permission,
correct,
to move,
okay,
would be otherwise in contravention of the 14th Amendment. It's Constitution.
Okay, if that's the argument, then I don't believe that given that you do not have a fundamental constitutional right to drive, and obviously I believe the courts have recognized that there can be limitations upon that. For example, requiring you to get insurance, requiring the vehicle to be registered. Those requirements inherent in the right to drive or the privilege to drive have been recognized under Florida law and as being valid restrictions. You have to get a driver's license to drive. You have to meet requirements to get a driver's license. They can limit your right to drive certain vehicles based on the type of license that you have. These all fall within the purview of does a state have a right or have the authority to limit what is been perceived as a privilege, not a fundamental constitutional right to drive.
I may still disagree with him a little bit on that, but the issue becomes whether or not the state has the right to create policy that ultimately affects and protects its citizens, its residents or its citizens of that state, and also whether or not a state has the right to create its own set of police powers, so long as those sets of police powers are not in contravention to the United States Constitution. So even though I may disagree with him a little bit with that, the gist of it is still the same. The state can set out these prescriptions, regulate, in other words, certain issues, and then so long as those regulations don't violate well-established rights, fundamental rights that are protected by the 14th Amendment, which, the 14th Amendment is a federal law that is applicable to the states.
So for that reason, I'm going to deny demand for dismissal as to number 9. I do believe, consistent with the legal authority I'm required to follow, that there is no fundamental constitutional right to drive an automobile.
Okay, I'll object, and on the record, let it be noted as well that a license, by definition, is permission to do some act which otherwise would be unlawful, to which the licensor could take from the licensee. Now, the issue of the license in and of itself is that the license allows anyone to go out and make a living. The ability to move from one spot to the other is governed even in international law.
Right. Okay. In your argument, you're suggesting that you have a right to move, a freedom of movement. Is that your argument?
That's the inclination.
In the context of driving an automobile, and again, I just want to make sure that I'm trying to explain it to you. I do not believe you have a constitutional fundamental right to drive an automobile in the state of Florida, and because it's not infringing upon a fundamental constitutional right, I don't believe it contravenes the 14th Amendment, and that's the reason I'm denying your demand for dismissal as to that argument. Now, you've made the argument,
I'll articulate it,
but I want to let you know the reason for that.
I'll articulate it in writing and put it into the record.
No, you've done a good job of it. I understand.
And that way I can go ahead and change the venue. So, okay, that needs to be addressed because there's fundamental issues in that.
We already addressed the jurisdiction of the court. That includes venue. So the alleged offense happened in Hillsborough County, and jurisdiction would vest in the 13th Judicial Circuit, which includes Hillsborough County. And that's the only county actually in the 13th Judicial Circuit is Hillsborough County. All right, number 10, demand for dismissal I'm not sure as to the requirements. I think we talked about what's alleged in the citation. It's a uniform traffic citation. The information alleges both a violation of the statute. Specifically, it alleges that it's a criminal offense. There's a box check for driving license suspended. It identifies you by name. It also identifies the alleged location of where your vehicle was stopped. It alleges the name of the officer who issued the citation. And so based on that, is there another argument that the requirements of the statute are not satisfied? And again, proving it is not the same thing as giving you a citation, and all they needed was probable cause to issue the citation. Whether they can prove it or not, that's another day.
Right, the probable cause has to arise from something that's articulable and provable, and I just want the record to reflect that. And as we have now been given the discovery, there's no proof that anything went on. More importantly, there's a Fourth Amendment issue to the U.S. Constitution in Article 1, Section 12 issue as well, because
That's unlawful search and seizure for those following along, keeping score. Hopefully, don't get too distracted by stuff I'm doing in the background. I wanted to get this kind of done and out of here, but let's. I want to have the documents prepared for you once we get this done. We get through this segment here.
if they observe
Well, here's what we're going to do, though.